I am a YouTube creator, mostly in the kids space. Our demographic is kids, early elementary. We have 5 channels and 18 million subscribers, and lucky enough to have 8 billion total views in the past 7 years, which is just surreal to me and a huge blessing to know that I get to be sort of the Mr. Rogers of this generation, where the content that we put on YouTube is actually watched and has an impact on culture, value systems, and entertainment, laughter, all of the things. And so if you look me up, you're not my demographic, you'll see me doing ridiculous, weird, crazy stuff. But I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I make my kids were in the beginning, the only actors on the channel, and then we hired a cast, and we now have a team of 20, and it's become sort of a genuine production, So that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about how AI changed my life. AI changed my life, and that's kind of a strange statement, a big statement. But back in October of 2024, my son, my 15-year-old son, kept coming to me and saying, "Mom, I am so thirsty." And I said, "Sweetie, drink more water. You're going to be just fine." And about 3 days later, he's like, "Mom, I am so thirsty. I'm so thirsty, and I'm waking up multiple times a night and peeing. I'm peeing like crazy, Mom, but I'm still so thirsty." And I was like, "That's so strange, but I can't take you to the doctor because you're thirsty, babe. Like, let's get you some electrolytes. Let's have you, how much water are you drinking?" Another 3 days later, he says, "Mom, I'm drinking over a gallon of water a day, and I am still so thirsty." So I turned to ChatGPT, because can you take your son to the doctor because he's thirsty? See, this is a wiser woman than I. And so I typed in his symptoms: peeing quite a bit at night and incredibly thirsty. And he looked fine, and he seemed to be energetic. And then I did notice he was like falling asleep in the middle of the day, and it was like, okay, there's something going on. And in 3 seconds, I found out that my son has, does anybody know? Diabetes. Yeah. It does not run in my family. It does not run in my husband's family. I didn't know anyone who had type 1 diabetes. So I was, in the dark, and ChatGPT told me, go to the ER. So we went to the ER. We spent 3 days in the ER, got a lot of education, learned all about injections, what happens with the pancreas, insulin production, all of these things. And hopefully I wouldn't have been so stupid that I didn't take my kid to the doctor if ChatGPT didn't tell me to. But in that moment, I realized that I had access to a diagnosis prior to actually visiting my doctor. And that is the power of what is happening today with AI. In December, okay, so I'm skipping it. Okay, in November, the end of November, skipping a few months ahead, I'm going to tell you 2 stories, by the way, okay? One's an AI story, and one is like a real-life human story, a story of a mom and a son who has diabetes. So tangenting to another story. So in November, I was approached by a company called Trovio, and because I'm a YouTube creator, I have 7 years of content sitting on hard drives in my closet gathering dust. And they approached me and said, "Hey, if you didn't know, these big tech companies, big AI companies, have been data scraping the internet and stealing your content." And I wasn't aware, and so I did the Googling and found the articles and did some research, and sure enough, they were lifting content, but they didn't have another path to do so. And so Trovio's founder, Marty Paces, is a brilliant tech guy and in the AI space. Yes, come over in the shaded section. It's easier for me to look one direction anyway. And essentially, Trovio became the bridge between any filmmaker, animator, YouTube creator, anyone who makes video content, and the Microsofts, the Amazons, the Metas, the ChatGPT, OpenAI, all of the big tech AI companies in the world. And what is happening now is they have a class action lawsuit against them for stealing content, and now they need an ethical path to pay creatives for what they have. And the reason they want it is because there's this big tech space, this arms race or this gold rush for these companies to create the best text to video format. So has anyone played with Sora? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you guys kind of know. And you have seen all the images where you have like 10 fingers and the eyes just aren't quite right, you know, or you might say, you might type in Japanese woman, stylish woman walking down the street in Tokyo, and the ethnicity might be wrong, you know. And so there's just quite a ways to go, and they need millions and millions and millions of hours to train their AI robots, we'll call them, their AI babies, to know the difference between a black cat and a white cat and an orange cat and all of these different things. So they need content, and right now the market is paying $1 to $2 a minute for that opportunity. So if anyone has hard drives and you're interested, you know, in turning a dime to help train AI, please talk to me later, and I'm happy to tell you more. Okay, back to my story. So that was in November. Okay, in December I heard about stem cells. Does anybody know much about stem cells?
Yeah.
Okay, my friend Sarah over here. Okay, so stem cells have a lot of miraculous things going on, and in the diabetes world, there was a woman in China who was cured of diabetes. It reversed her diabetes type 1 entirely. So I got curious and started researching, and a lot of the clinics, I talked to 16 different clinics internationally, and a lot of the clinics said your best chance for healing for your son is during the honeymoon phase. And the honeymoon phase is this period of time after you're diagnosed where your pancreas continues to produce insulin, and then it eventually just kind of dies. So I felt this urge, this rush, like if there's a potential healing for my son, I need to do it right away before his honeymoon phase is completed. So I got on my knees, I'm a woman of faith, and I prayed my guts out, and I quit my job, and I researched and researched and researched. And as I researched and read about stem cells and the process and what happens in the pancreas and what the beta cells and all these different cells, I found myself like getting a mini degree in science. And I used ChatGPT and some of the other AIs all of the time, because I would say, tell me about this process. I would be reading about a process and I wouldn't know what it was. So I would go to AI and become educated, then be able to understand more of the journal or the literature. So now let me see. Hey, Dave, how much time do I get?
Probably gotta
Wrap it up. Okay. All right. I will tell you the quick version of what happened. I felt like, okay, I'm gonna take 2 minutes, Dave. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So I got on my knees, and I felt like God was telling me to take my son to a specific clinic. And in my mind, that meant I was going to see physical healing for my son. We go to Mexico. We spent a whole month in Mexico doing stem cells. And by the time we were finished, he had 4 days in a row that he was insulin independent. He didn't need any insulin at all. And I thought, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this answer and this gift for my son. And then we went home. What do you think happened? Any guesses?
Didn't work out.
Any doomsday guesses? Slowly and surely there was a steady creep, right? A steady creep. And now he's back using the same amount of insulin as before. But this is what also happened. He, has anyone had a disease or known someone with a disease that goes through a grieving process? You grieve your former life. And my son didn't want to leave his room. He didn't want to go to school. He didn't want to be with friends. He was scared and angry at God and angry at life. And why me? And went through this really terrible cycle. And when I got on my knees, I was sure that God was talking to me. And while we were there in Mexico, guess what happened? He began to open. He began to accept what was happening to him. He began to understand that God wasn't out to get him. And our relationship bloomed and blossomed, and we had a lot of fun together and a lot of close one-on-ones. And if anyone has teenagers, you know that's really hard. So there was definitely miracles. So I feel, to wrap up, that the God side of the story, that God sent me to Mexico with my son for a healing in our relationship, a healing in his spirituality, and a healing of processing what was happening to him emotionally. And although we didn't receive the physical healing, there was still many miracles that I saw there. And that has nothing to do with AI, but I did rely quite heavily on AI as I did quite a bit of research. So I will wrap up now. Thanks. Thank you.